Assalamu alaikum and namaste to all of you. Shall we start with the screen sharing? So
Yes,
that
ma'am.
we don't, I'll just try to share. If it's not possible from my end, you can just help me out, ma'am.
Sure, ma'am.
FTP, FTP. Yeah, is it visible to all of?
Now it is coming. Wait. Only thing is you have to put it into slideshow mode, ma'am.
This is actually, I was not able to open it.
Okay,
So,
okay. Can everyone see that screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, nicely it is available, no? I mean, it is visible.
Yes, ma'am. Not, I can say yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, Arpita, ma'am, it's okay.
Ma'am, you can do it, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much. Now, what I would like to start from here is that information and communication technology, or the abbreviated form of ICT, has become one of the building blocks of the modern society, as we all know. Now, the outbreak of coronavirus has changed the way actually we look at life and learning today, post, you can say, in India post March. So in the new learning order, we do not have the luxury of face-to-face, what you call, interaction. It is imperative that we faculty learn the art and science of designing, developing, and delivering the content so as to sustain the interest of our students in online environment. Now, since the youth constitute more than, you can say, 67% of the Indian population, it is mandatory to design a curriculum that aids skill development of youth, and along with providing quality in basic education. Now, today, the topic being online learning, and more so online content, e-content augments the learning experience by deploying various media for visualization and explanation of abstract ideas. Now, keeping in view the diverse need of the learners, now the use of e-content has become an essential component of the teaching and learning processes. So today, post-COVID or during the COVID era, e-content is becoming popular.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. Actually, people are not able to see the screen in full screen.
Ma'am, will it be possible for you to open it, ma'am?
Sure, ma'am. You can send me your PPT.
I've already mailed you, ma'am. I've already mailed you. Just have a look at it.
Okay.
Because here it was not opening, so it was little difficult for me.
I'll do that, ma'am. I'll do that. I got it.
Just try it out.
Yeah, I got it. I'll do that.
Still. Is it opening, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm opening, ma'am. I'll do that. Everyone is able to see.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope. Okay. So this is my first. This has been my first slide. Thank you, all of you. Sorry for the inconvenience. Now, what has happened now? E-content is becoming popular because it allows, if you see, flexibility in terms of time, in terms of place, and in terms of pace of learning also. That means both space and pace of learning is also taken into consideration in case of online delivery. A resource which is a resource-rich environment is necessary for teaching and learning to be effective. Now, what is happening here? E-content is often made up of separate small units, or you can say it's a combination of different text. You can find it on the slide, a video, or you can see images and sound. They are made up of small components, and these are the building blocks which are often used to make our learning very composite, as a composite learning objectives that can be exhibited in various presentation formats, whichever that we would like to use. And that has been very clearly depicted, like whether we would, for our course, for our module that we are teaching, do we require a visual? And in case of visual, do we require an image, or do we require an infographic that will catch the attention of the students, of the learners? So we have to use it. If it is a text, suppose it is more of a technical, or then a text may be very, very important for us. So whichever, whether it is games, sometimes learners learn very quickly and they get involved if we are using games. Okay, sometimes it can be interactive videos also, it can be ebooks. So these are the different forms of learning that which forms the basis of the e-content. Now, coming on to the next slide, ma'am, the next slide, please. Coming on to the next slide, you will see here, the choice is very clear for us as instructors or as faculty members. The choice is clear. Either we want them means the learners to be passive observer or active participant. A question was asked by one of the participants to Dr. Mamoon that how do we grab the attention or keep the attention of the learners, of the students, if I'm not wrong. We actually, in case of online content or online delivery of content, we deal with 3 I's: informative, interesting, and involvement. If our delivery, if our content is very informative, then the learners will find it very interesting. They will get involved, and automatically there will be maximum involvement in case of participation, whether they would like to attend and participate in our lecture or not, in our delivery or not. Now, what do we understand over here? E-content design, development depends upon the nature of the content, nature of the module, nature of the course that we are, whether it's a technical course or whether it's a theoretical course, whether it's a research-based course, it depends upon that. And its target learners. What type of learning? Do they have the prerequisite of the existing course, or they are simply novice in that area? So it depends, the content of it should depend upon the type of the course and the type of the learners that we are going to deal with. It will also depend on the quality and the complexity of the learning to be achieved. How difficult is the subject? How tough is the subject? Because since face-to-face interaction is missing, so we have to get into the shoes of the learners in order to understand their sequential thought process. Instructional design is the practice of creating instructional experiences, and that can make what you call the acquisition of knowledge. For the acquisition of knowledge, for whom they will acquire the knowledge, the learners will acquire the knowledge and the skills more efficiently, effectively, and it will be more appealing, and they will be henceforth motivated. More than motivation, they will be inspired to attend the series of lecture of the course. So this process, if you see the diagram, if you see, the process broadly consists of determining the current status of the learner's understanding, defining the end goal of the instructional material, and creating some intervention to assist the transaction. Now, what we have to see, where were they at the beginning of the course or when they started the course, and we would certainly like to measure them where they have reached after a certain period of time. So having said this, there are 5 phases in the e-content process, and they are known as, that acronym is ADDIE, ADDIE. The A stands for analysis, D design, D for development, I for implementation, and E for evaluation. Now, we will be talking about the 3 Ds. So what are the 3 Ds? The design phase, the design, the first D, then the development phase, and then the next one, the implementation, which comes around as known as the delivery phase. Ma'am, the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Now, each of those domains, each of those phases has been here very clearly subdivided into further. They have been further divided into analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. We will be going deep into each one of this in order to design our module, in order to develop the curriculum, and also in order to understand the delivery of the system. Now, what are the various phases? Like the analysis, before we start doing analysis, before we start doing a program or anything, we do a gap analysis. So here, in terms of developing e-learning content, we will be doing, what is the need? What is the very purpose? So we do a need analysis. Then we have the target audience analysis. What type of audience are we referring to? Are we addressing to? The task and the topic analysis. We will be going into, because I cannot suddenly jump into design. So before that, I'll take few minutes of yours to understand, to discuss with you what do we understand by analysis. Then we have the design, where we have again 5 subpoints as learning objective, sequencing, instructional strategy, and delivery strategy and evaluation strategy. Basically, if you see, everything has to be done at the design stage so that there are no blunders committed at the end of the, or when we have reached the delivery stage. It is better. So that's precisely the reason whenever we are even developing new products also, we try to correct or rectify, or we go to a lot of what you call hit and trial method at the design stage, then at the later stage where a lot of time and cost is also becomes a constraint for us, and we run into huge expenditure. Then comes the development stage, where we do 3 things: content development, storyboard development, and the courseware development. As affiliated colleges or as standalone, actually, because Crescent is also a standalone university, a private university, so you might be actually involving it into all these 3 types of development. But basically, faculty members who are coming from affiliated colleges or who are associated with affiliated colleges, they are not involved into what is known as courseware development. We are only doing what you call as content development and storyboard development, so that we make our module more and more interesting, interactive, and more involved. We evolve it so much that the students are involved in our teaching. Then comes the implementation, which is otherwise known as the 3rd phase, that is the delivery phase, which is known as the installation and the distribution, and managing learners' activities. And the last stage is known as the evaluation, where we do what are the reactions, the actions and the reactions, what are the learning outcomes, behavior, and results. These 5 steps or the 5 phases is somehow or the other is also related to Bloom's taxonomy, all the levels. That also we can also relate to it. But that is more useful when we are taking into consideration the pedagogies into discussion. Now, the various phases of this e-content, if you see development process, are as follows: analysis, design, development, delivery, and evaluation, or implementation and evaluation. Now, the specific activities of this each phase are clearly defined. The sub-points are very, very clearly defined. These are the broad areas, the scope which has been defined for us in order to understand. It also provides the parameters for assessing the quality of the e-content, so that during the process of development as well as curation by various stakeholders, we actually try to make it more appropriate depending upon our learners' requirement. That is the process of curation, and we involve in that the industry experts, We involve the academicians from different elite institutions. Then we also include the alumni into it. So that is what we basically do it. And the curation by stakeholders like the organization itself, the administrators also, the teachers, the students, the alumni, the corporates, all of them are also involved. Now, ma'am, the next slide, please. Thank you. Now, as we were discussing that before we go into the design phase, let us first discuss about what do we understand by this analysis. What is the analysis that we are trying to say? I've only broadly classified into 4 different points. Fill a gap in professional, to fill a gap in professional knowledge and skills. Segregate the learners into slow and advanced. Actually, segregate the learners into slow, average, and advanced learners. Analyze relevant tasks and topics. Effective solution in terms of time and cost. Because we have also understood the time and cost are the time, cost, and pace. These are the 3 basic important factors to be considered while developing the online content or the e-content. Now, when we are trying to understand this analysis, what we are trying to say, the instructor, we are the instructors, the instructor should know the primitives of the course, which learners have already been put through. That's the basic reason whenever a learner takes admission or seeks admission into our program, we ask them, what have been your basic education before you are taking, either you're taking admission into engineering, or you're taking admission into, say, advanced in MTech, or whether it is for MBA or for any master's course. What is their prerequisite? What is their basic qualification? That is what we try to understand. Now, to expand on that, what is that of the students are already aware of it, and what is it that they are expected to know? That's precisely the reason whenever a student or the learners are admitted into MBA course, for a 1 month, we carry, or 15 days, we carry an orientation program, or what you call a foundation level program, to bring all the learners into this common platform or into the same platform, so that what is true, that the students are already aware of it, and we get a good knowledge of it and what they are expected to know about it. Especially when the students come from different science and arts background to join into MBA course. Now, this allows an instructor to discover the knowledge gap so as to pitch the current, you can say the content very, very appropriately. Otherwise, once we lose the attention of the student, he will never be interested to participate and to attend our courses. Because one thing we should always remember, there is no face-to-face interaction that's happening. Second, segregate learners. As we are segregating the learners into slow, average, and advanced, so into advanced, that we are understanding which sort of students require more attention, that is the slow and the average learners, so that we give them more of tutorial classes. While I was being associated with Symbiosis University of Applied Sciences, we had a very good concept known as LTPS. That was known as lecture, tutorial, practical, and skill based. That means each of our course was divided into 15 classes of lecture. Only 15 lecture classes will be taken, and then we used to divide it into practical and skills more. We used to send them, and then tutorial was based on who are the slow learners and who are the average learners, because advanced learners were finding it very boring to attend the classes. So they were given little bit tasks which were related to little bit higher end. Now, when we're talking about tasks, the next point says that analyze relevant tasks and topics. Now, once we have segregated the students into slow, into average, and advanced learners, tasks motivate the students to learn the content. That means relevant tasks have to be identified to engage the students. Relevant tasks needs to be given to the students to be engaged so that they participate. For example, suppose you are a professor, you are an instructor in the School of Pharmacy. Now, how do you teach how a pharmacist keeps the stock of its goods in its retail outlet? So a professor of pharmacy, what they can do, may come up with a task by asking the students to identify the different methods of medical supplies while physically visiting. Do they follow alphabetical order? Do they keep the stocks based on the molecular combination? Do they keep the stocks based on the company? Or do they keep the stocks based on various combinations? So that depends upon, so this sort of tasks can be given depending upon basic level as the progression of the module advances from the week 1 to the week 15th, or if it's a trimester, in the 3 months tenure. Now the next, we are talking about tasks. The second one is, it relates to topic. Now the topic analysis, it facilitates the identification and classification of the course content in easy and understandable way. See, our intention is not to confuse the learner. As it is, he is little bit in a confused state because he's not in a very interactive stage, so he cannot do interactive state. We will be discussing about in the later part of the discussion. So what we are trying to say here, what we try to do, we are trying to do a mind mapping over here when we are trying to teach the students, when we are trying to involve this topic factor, when we are trying to understand, make it in a very understandable way. There's a very good example that I have kept in the next slide. But before that, I was just like to say is that effective solution in terms of time and cost. That means our pace, we should know our pace, our time of delivery, our cost. The cost here means the technological cost, and the organization incurs different types of the budgetary constraints that a organization or an institution undergoes in developing the e-content. Ma'am, the next slide, please. In order to understand the topic, the task we have understood, that can be a physical activity or a visit to any, that can be planned by a professor or a faculty in charge for a particular course. Now here what we are trying to say over here is that, in this slide, is that we want to make somebody understand the game of tennis. And how do we say that? We say, in order to understand the game of tennis with the help of mind mapping, we say that there are 5 things that you need to remember. First, what are the principles? What are the shots that are being played in the game of tennis? What is the scoring pattern that is being followed in the game of tennis? Which type of surfaces this game is being played? This game is generally played. And what are the major tournaments which are there? There are 2 types. One is the ATP and the Grand Slams, which are being used. Which type of surfaces? So once you explain the learner in this, what you call stage and in the phase manner, he actually designs or builds a map, and it becomes very easy for the learner to understand what exactly my faculty or my instructor is trying to deliver. Like, for example, surfaces. When we say, what was this game? Was it a tournament, or was this Grand Slam played on the clay surface or hard surface, or on a grass surface? What sorts of shots are being played in the, whether it was a backhand, whether it was a forehand, whether it was a drop shot? What is it? Was it a lobby shot? What is it? That is what we are trying to. What are the principles that means the position plays a very, very important role in case of in case of positioning of the opponent, where is he placed, and based on that the serve will be made. So this is how actually you can try to develop your content. You have to understand the analysis, what type, you have to understand that gap, what is the need of the learner, because as it is, you have already divided the learners into slow and advanced. If it is required, then you can also follow the average also. Average. So this basically gives you and the learners a brief, a picture of how the game of tennis, and similarly you can do it for every module, for every course that you teach at the beginning of, on the very first day, while you are discussing the content, the flow of the content of your course, when you are talking about the assessment of the course, and when you are talking how we are going to travel the path of this course. Ma'am, the next slide, please. Now, before again we enter the design phase, we have to remember that there are 6 design principles basically which are involved for e-learning. The 6 design principles are mentioned over here. The first principle goes by multimedia principle, the congruity principle, the modality principle, the redundancy principle, the coherence principle, and the personalization principle. Now, let's go one by one. When we are talking about multimedia principle, we actually, as instructor, we do all of these. But since the platform has changed, since the medium has changed, so we are finding it little difficult, or little, we are finding it that we are novice in this arena. But it's not like that. We actually do it while you have been taking lectures for these for last 10 to 15 or 20, 25 years. It's that we are just sequentially now ordering it, and it has become the next normal for us to follow. Now, when we're talking about this multimedia principle, what we are trying to say is here that a combination of relevant video, audio, visual, that is video, audio, and textual content works well. Nothing, however, the most effective pairing is visual and audio together. We blend them in such a way that we bear in mind that the people can generally only pay attention to one video and one audio element at a given time. We forget. You might have tried it with your own also, with yourself also, that at one time we are able to only follow one video and one audio. So let us try to keep it simple. Let us always try to follow the principle of KISS. Keep it simple and straight, the KISS strategy. When we're talking about the contiguity principle, what we're trying to say in the second principle is that because e-learning often takes place with a scrollable interface, we are continuously scrolling the data, and we are the one which has gone is not able to be visible at the current position. The text graphic alignment, the easier it is for users. That means we have to use very, very simple text so that they can find the relationship between each element that was covered in the past and that is now being covered now. The psychology behind this principle is that the less space there is between an image and a description, the less work it becomes, the lesser is the burden in the minds of the learners. They don't have to put too much of stress on their mind. What does this modality principle talks about? The modality principle says the way you present information should be dependent how complex the information is. That means our basic intention is to make the things simple, to make the things understandable in a straightforward manner to our learners. So what we do it over here, a simple and clear flow chart. That's why if you see, as soon when the software industry, or you can see all the branches of engineering, they do follow a flow chart. Even the field of medicine also follows what you call a flow chart, because a flow chart for non-medical professional is easy to understand, and otherwise for complicated medical diagnosis. As a patient, when you visit a doctor, even the doctor also, the healthcare professional also tries to make you understand the disease with the help of a flow chart, and how the process of curing will take place, so that it becomes imprinted in our mind. That is what is known as, we understand by the modality principle. Now, what is redundancy principle? As the name as the term itself suggests, that as with modality principle, the way you present information also directly impacts the learning. here, the element, suppose you think it is not important and you have not included it, that means you have missed out something. That is also very, very important for you, what to include and what not to include. Sometimes we fail to include the important things, and as a result, what happens, it becomes very difficult for the learner to understand, and he does not get the flow of the thoughts. We think that as we don't put ourselves into the shoes of the learner, and we think it is irrelevant and we take it out. We don't include it, but there is actually, we have created the gap for the, that means as we think that there are some important information is important, there is few information which you might think as a faculty or an instructor that it is not important, but it is important from the learner's point of view. So you need to very critically analyze what has to be included and what has to be deleted, or what cannot be, what should not be included. The coherence principle. What does the coherence principle talks about in this? As a designer, you're basically a designer now. As a designer of this module, what will happen? You should use the same formatting throughout your interface, and bear in mind that when learning is the objective, less is more. That means we have to keep it more apt, more crisp, so that, and we should use the same font size. We should use the same what you call the text, the font size, the text also, the font also, so that he reads it and he does not get confused in between while he is going through the text. The last one is known as what is known as personalization principle. Now, when we are talking about personalization principle, what we mean to say here, we should try to give, even though it may be it is not a face-to-face interface, but we should try to be personalized. It should be conversational, and it should be informal, so that, because in a classroom environment, you might have seen that we actually are very informal, we are very approachable by the students, and as well as our discussions are very, we keep on conversing with our students. So they are actually somehow or the other, they're not distracted, and they are involved in the lecture. That it's a dialogue that basically takes place. It's not a monologue. But in order to, that is, in case of online, the chances of going into the monologue mode is so much that in order to avoid that, we should keep in mind that we should be personalized. We should keep on speaking with them, conversational, and we should be informational. How does it differ? We will be talking about all these things in this one. Ma'am, can you just, yes, this is the first stage, that is the design phase. This is the first B, that from that ADDIE, analysis, design, development, implementation, which is otherwise known as the delivery, and the evaluation. This is the first stage that known as the design phase of online content. Here, if you see, it comprises of 5 important subpoints: the learning objectives, the sequencing, the instructional strategy, the delivery strategy, the evaluation strategy. Now, the design should balance between engagement. We are engaging the learners. We are trying to engage the learners. We are expression and action. What is the type of expression that we are giving? How important? And what is the action that is required? And we are also delivering from our end. A design document, that's why, should be prepared at this stage, because whatever iterations has to undergo in order to develop a content should happen at this stage, including the outputs of all the parameters. See, the one thing, whatever content we are developing, whether it is for offline teaching or online teaching, it should be measurable. It should be quantifiable. There should be metrics to quantify it. It means how we should be able to know how good is good and how bad is bad. That we should be able to quantify it, because at the end of the day, you know, when you are filling up any UGC document or documents which has been produced by which needs submission at MHRD, they needs in terms of, they mean to us in terms of numbers. They don't ask for us to give us explanation. They mean to us in terms of numbers. Now, so to broadly classify, these are the 5 areas. Now let us go one by one to each one of them. Now, when we are talking about, ma'am, the next slide consists of the learning objectives. See, if you see, each one of us, since Crescent is also a private university, each one of us actually, we write down the learning objectives, and vis-a-vis, we measure it with the different levels of the Bloom's taxonomy also. Okay, when we are designing the learning objectives, suppose what we are saying, that to relate each concept, learn to class outside, to explain the fundamental concepts, okay, to connect the different concepts and learn through lectured projects. So what we have to see, which objective, which level of objectives matches with which level of the Bloom's taxonomy. That is what we are trying to vis-a-vis, we have to measure while we are writing it, learning objectives and the Bloom's taxonomy. And if you remember, just for our reference, the same thing, this learning objective will also be taken into consideration when we are preparing the question papers, and we are doing that which question relates to which level of the Bloom's taxonomy and which program outcome, which course outcome, and which learning objectives it has achieved. So the learning objectives, while we are jotting down, while we are designing the course, should be in line with the Bloom's taxonomy. The learning objectives describe what the learner will be able to do at the end of using the e-content, and specifications of objectives. We have to see this is the first step of the design stage. This is the first and the foremost stage of the design stage. Ma'am, the next slide, please. Now, when we are talking, this is an example that has been given to us here. Now, when we are talking about here, we have to see that as we design the learning objectives, this is an example of a dashboard has been given, has been depicted over here, which requires, which is a design effective reports for the decision makers, how the decision makers actually, they do how sequentially they arrive at a decision. What is the sequence that they follow? In the first order, you see that for every decision to be effective, we see we should meet the communication. The very purpose of communication should be met. We should identify the user's information requirements, from what is the requirements, what sort of information the user requires in order to take a particular decision. Construct a logical and persuasive message, then choose a report format according to that. That means we cannot be a report that is to conduct a lab experiment or to conduct a general body meeting will not be the similar as we do a report of how a particular event has taken place. So each has got a different report format for whether we need this sort of activity or this sort of events again to happen in the future. Write the report clearly and concisely. That means what we are trying to say, that there should be a sequential flow of thought that needs to be followed when we are at the design phase, and whether the particular program is feasible or not, whether the time invested, the faculty resource investment, whether it will give us the return on investment on us. And we have to also measure that whether the concept of brevity, the concept of crispness that has been mentioned or not. We should not be using big jargons to make it more and more complex, and it becomes very difficult for the reader to understand the decision that we are going to take. And even the decision makers also cannot arrive at a decision very effectively. So what we are trying to say is that through the second point, sequencing is the logical flow of content to build on the previous learning. That means what the feedback, that the analysis that we have done it with the help of our students at the need analysis stage, at the analysis stage, okay, at this stage, that is the first A stage, that has to be what has been their previous learning. Based on that, we will be designing our learning objectives. A proper order of learning elements makes it easier for even slow learners, because see, our intention is not to focus only on the advanced learners. We have to bring the slow and the average learners, if not completely at par with the advanced learners, but to some extent with the advanced learners, so that they see, at the end of the day, institution gets admission if there is employability is achieved or not. So that is the next stage. Okay, so and this is how we are trying to do it. Now in the next slide you will see, ma'am, the next slide please, the third point, the instructional methods. We actually have been using more or less all of them in our offline teaching as faculty members. We have been using presentations, we have been using case studies, we have been doing role plays, we have been doing simulations. But what is mentioned over here is that the instruction methods are broadly divided into three categories: the expositive methods, the application methods, the collaborative methods. Now, what that means, and another thing, these are the three different methods, but there are three factors which this instructional methods, it depends upon three important factors before we go into these three types of methods. What are the three factors? The learners, the first and the foremost are the learners. The second one is known as the technological and the organizational constraints. Whenever we are talking about technological and organizational constraints, it means we are talking about the budgetary constraints. And the third one, we are talking about time. Based on these three factors, we will adopt which method to choose, whether it is more of expositive, it is application, it is collaborative, and also it depends upon which type of course we are going to deliver on the learners, on the technology, and which type of course. If it is a technological, more of a technical course, you will be depending more on demonstration practice methods. You will be more depending upon simulations. If it's management courses, you will be more depending upon the role plays, the simulations, the case studies. If you are more into making them HR executives, you will be more depending upon making them learn about the presentation skills, how peer tutoring can take place, how collaborative work can take place. So it also depends upon which type of module, which type of learners, which type of technology, what is the organizational, what you call, how rich, how cash rich it is, and do we have enough time to develop such effective content with us, with the available resources. Now, under expositive method, an instructor delivers the knowledge on a given topic, which can be complemented with tests, if you have seen it, with tests and exercises, which can evaluate the learner's understanding. Basically, when we are using these expositive methods, we are only talking about the first two levels of the Bloom's taxonomy, the knowledge and understanding of that levels. We are in the expositive methods, if you have seen, we try to give examples or solve the problems by the illustrative examples, solve problems or the illustrative examples. Now, considering the fact that some learners only learn by doing, they don't like to listen at all. You cannot just grab the attention of some learners. Then what do? But we need to make them learn. We need to make them sit in the class. We need to, if not sit in the class, we need to make them listen. Then what do we do in that case? Then the application method has to be followed. When the application method has to be followed, if you have seen in the last 3 months that how Sachin Tendulkar has been demonstrating how the washing of the hands has to be done effectively. That is basically his giving us demonstration and the practice method. Or some of you who might be having young kids at home, the children like to watch that Maddie show where that person actually Yugal Jaiswal or somebody, actually he is playing with the colors. So that is how actually we are involving the learners to participate, and by doing, they do it. Even Sanjeev Kapoor also, the chef, he also does the same thing. By demonstrating, by practicing, he makes even a person who does not want to do cooking also, he makes them learn cooking. So if the nature of the subject, the third case, if the nature of the subject is such that the active interaction between the facilitator and the learning is required, a lot of discussions are required, then what do we go? We go for the collaborative methods, where we say technical support. Majority of us might have faced some of the other problems during this entire period of lockdown also, where even the aquaguard mechanic or say the washing machine mechanic was unable to what you call attend the shows. Then what they have done, they have attend the calls. So what they have done, when you have called them, they have told us, sir, video call, you please do video call so that I'll be able to guide you how to rectify your problem, because we are unable to attend your problems. Ma'am, the next one. Now we go to the delivery methods. Now there are a combination of delivery methods can be adopted after we have designed the learning objectives, after we have done the sequencing of our thought process. Then we have chosen which case study has to be there, or presentations has to be there, or what has to be there. We have chosen all these things, and then we go for the delivery methods over here. The choice of the delivery methods again depends upon the type of the content. Theoretical concepts are very much necessary. The level of understanding of the learner, technological support that is required by us, and what you call the support available, and the constraints, because the institution also has a lot of constraints within its infrastructure to accept and to adopt a particular delivery method. Ma'am, the next one, please. Yes, thank you. Now, this is the last stage of the design phase. Now, what we are trying to say it over here is that the establish, it can consider 3 stages, 3 points over here. Establish the purpose of the evaluation. Now, what are you trying to measure? See, we have already understood that every content that we are developing has to be quantified. Some of the other metrics has to be put into it. Okay. So, what is that we are trying to measure, and how effective it is? Did the learner learn or not? Define the learner's progress or provide certification. Like these days, all of us might be attending a lot of FDPs, and the FDP, all the people might have put a constraint. If you are not achieving 40% in your quiz, and if you are not achieving 80% of your assignments, if you are not submitting, and if you are not giving the feedbacks of each of your training session that you are attending, you might not get a certificate, even though you have paid the fees. So these are the different ways you are actually putting the learner, so that he puts there's complete involvement of the learner in order to evaluate its progress, and we can also know study the progress of the learner, and at the end provide a certificate. Conduct a dip test before the start of the course to find out the knowledge level. That means before we actually design a program, we would always like to know the test audience, like at what level are we addressing, and where do we want to take our our audience at the end of the course. So this is otherwise known as the dip test that we would like to follow. Conduct a dip test before the start of the course, and during the course also we keep conducting such tests, whether to study the learning curve of the learners. That is these are the three most important points. So because in virtual classrooms, what happens in virtual classrooms, there are constraints such as there's no eye contact, there are shorter attention span, and developers of this contents, that's why, needs to stay focused to grab the attention. Our biggest challenge as instructors or as faculty members is to grab the attention of the learners. We might have all of us might have done all these things and we might have practiced it, but still you will see this will become online delivery of content will become the biggest challenge, because we are not in a face-to-face interaction with with our learners or with our participants. The next slide. This is the second stage that we are entering over here. Now, in this case, as we have discussed, that in this case, the content development, the storyboard development, and of course, as a private university, even you can do the courseware development also. Now, when we are talking about this, the develop phase actually builds on both. It is built upon how? It is built upon the first stage, that is the analysis, and the design stage, design phases. Because the analysis phase actually does the gap analysis or the need analysis. Now, the purpose of this phase is to generate the lesson plans. All of us generate the lesson plans and the lesson materials. But during this phase, the instructor, what they have to do is that they will develop the instruction. In this phase, see, let us not forget, we have prepared lesson plans, we have prepared lesson materials, but these were all for face-to-face, and these were all for interactive, face-to-face interactive sessions, not online. Those were all offline. But in this case, media comes into picture, and all media that will be used in this instruction will be in this development stage. And any support documentation. See, what we have to understand is that we have to always wear the shoes of our learner to develop the content also. Instructor will build all materials, okay, all media materials, because some media materials might be accepted by a specific set of learners, some media might not be accepted by. So some people might like graphics, some people might like animation, some people might like illustrations, scenarios, video, audio. So that is the forms of the content. Remember the first slide that we have seen. So which form? So we have to use neither too much, neither make it too cumbersome, nor use too less of the different forms of the content to make our content development very, very interesting and informative also at the same time. Now, when we are talking about this one, the next stage, the development. Ma'am, the next slide, please. Then I can be able to. Yeah. See, in case the development process, while you're developing the content development, it has got three stages: the content development, the storyboard development, and the courseware development. Now, in case of the content development, what are the, see, every organization, if you have gone through the material of IGNOU or any distance learning education institution, you will see, whether it is in case of Narsi Monji, whether it is case of Ambedkar Open University, whether it is in case of IGNOU, whatever, they have a specific template. They have icons. They have got special graphics. All the graphics that they use, okay, they are all same, because they follow this. They follow a particular template. They follow a typical icon, they follow a typical font, they follow a typical font size, or say a background, that is only to differentiate one from the other. If you give 5 study material of IGNOU, Lovely Professional University, Narsi Monji, Ambedkar Open University, or so forth and so on, You can differentiate it because the moment you see their template, their icons, their graphics and everything. Now, ma'am, the next one, please. Now, in case, so what we are trying to say over, in case, ma'am, the previous one, I missed one point over there. In the case of this one, you see over here that the e-content development is the heart of teaching learning process. That becomes the heart, because although the content development plays a key role in the e-learning process, but it is undoubtedly not an easy job. It is not an easy process. It is a very, maybe it is the toughest one, because design and vis-a-vis, you have to think what is happening here. It requires expert knowledge. In the subject area, that means subject area expertise, subject matter expertise are also required over here. Patience in creating the necessary objects that may be of good quality, and high sense of creativity, so that people, when they're reading, and when as an instructor you're not in front of them to facilitate and to make their learning easy, the topic should be covered as a whole for them. From this, we can predict that e-content production enriches. This e-content production is the toughest, and it enriches the e-learning, because this e-learning happens to be the most dynamic way. It is the most dynamic stage. It is said that people are visual minded. Everything, if you create it in a visual, they will start visualizing. We human beings, we actually visualize a lot. They retain 20% of what they hear, but they keep 50% of what they see. Hear and see both at the same time. In the first or the two slides, if we can recall, that every human being can hear and see one video and one audio at one time. We cannot watch multiple audios and multiple videos at the same time. And 100% of what they hear and what they see, they do actually. That means what they do, and this is what e-contents are actually poised to do, and e-content makes that, and they're intended to do also at the same time. Ma'am, now the next slide, please. Now, when we are talking about the story development board, what we are trying to say over here, this is a small example which has been given over here, that a particular organization wants to bring about change management. Okay, now in case of story, what we are trying to put over here, a storyboard is what with the help of animations, okay, and more of diagrams. Together, these diagrams, they make a business process. We are trying to see it in this slide also, and this eventually it is supposed to complete a work with the help of a story that is being created with a story which is facilitated with the help of animations. Now, this also becomes a part of the design process. Design development process is basically depends upon the analysis phase and the design phase, and it can be used to consider the user experience at different stages or for different designs also. Now, storyboard, what they're trying to state over here, it is just a sketch that can be used as a valuable tool, as a visual tool. Here, suppose an organization wants to bring about a change. So, what all things they need to consider to bring about the change? They have considered vision of the organization. What basically motivates the entire staff and the employees of the organizations to come on board? What is that motivating factor? What is, if based on the previous two, what is that competency level that is involved, and what are the resources available within that organization, which together they say, yes, we can bring about that change, and then they go for the plan. We know how to do it and when to do it, and ultimately it results in the success of bringing about that change within that organization. So in this way, if an organization also can help in building with the help of a storyboard, can bring about a big change, In the same way, we have to also bring about changes by bringing about more of animations in our online content. Ma'am, then next, the last stage, that is the delivery stage. Here is the main. Today we are actually facing challenge in this phase. That is the delivery phase. We are talking about here synchronous and asynchronous. Now, what does that mean? What are we trying to understand from here? In the delivery phase, piloting is done to ensure that the learner is able to use and spend quality time and gain quality information from the online content that is being delivered. Now, how does it happen? Today's workforce, if you see, is expected to be highly educated. And the most important thing is that the employability factor should be more highly educated, and they need to continuously, because there is an ocean of information, free information that is available to us, and we need to improve our skills and acquire new ones by engaging in the lifelong learning. Now, how does this e-learning helps us? That is what we have to see. Because henceforth, if you see post-COVID, before COVID and after COVID, it's only going to be online that is going to stay. So what do we need to do in order to elevate our level of delivery? Now, for e-learning initiatives to succeed, the organizations and educational institutions must understand the benefits and the limitations of different e-learning techniques and methods. Basically, there are two types that we are talking about over here. That is the synchronous and the asynchronous. Two basic types. Now, until recently, we used to all e-learning initiatives mainly was asynchronous. Now, when we are talking about asynchronous means for teaching and learning. That means recent improvements in the technology and increasing. Now we are moving from asynchronous to synchronous. So let us try to understand these words. What does these two words mean? Any learning tool that is in real time, such as instant messaging, that allows students and teachers to ask. Basically, what we are doing today is synchronous. Now it is asynchronous, synchronous that will be happening when we answer the questions. When we go into a discussion, we are actually into real time instant messaging that allows the students and the teachers to ask and answer questions immediately. Is synchronous rather than learning at their own space. edX, Coursera are all asynchronous. Students who participate in synchronous learning courses are able to interact with other students and other teachers during that lesson, which does not happen in case of asynchronous. Because students, they learn at their own pace. The main benefit in case of synchronous learning is that it enables the students to avoid learning in isolation. There is discussion which is happening in case of synchronous, which is missing in case of asynchronous. Since they are in communication, since they are also with others in the process of the learning, so their learning is more than asynchronous. However, synchronous learning is not as flexible. If you see synchronous, all may not have the same, all may not be able to attend the delivery of the lecture at the same time. It is challenging for us, but they can definitely, what you call, set aside a specific time slot in order to attend the live sessions, live teaching sessions, and online course in the real time, so that they may not be idle for those who are already for the busy ones, busy schedules. That is what we are trying to see. But then what is asynchronous learning that we are talking about, or we are trying to understand? Asynchronous learning On the other hand, what we are trying to say is that is carried out at when that student or the teacher is offline. The recording has happened. It has been delivered. They will be sending me their questions with the help of blogs, with the help of what you call mails, emails. That is what is known as asynchronous coursework, communications delivered through either through web or through mail or through messages posted on community forums or community groups can be considered as asynchronous learning. They're examples of, these are all the different types of examples of what you call as asynchronous learning. But a student is able to follow the curriculum at their own pace in case of asynchronous, because without having to worry about the scheduling of that. This is one of the advantage. But what is happening over here? What is the most important thing that is missing from here? That is peer group learning is not happening in case of asynchronous, which is very much present in case of synchronous learning. So we have to do so that we actually follow synchronous learning. So this may be perfect option for users who are working. Which one? Asynchronous. But students who are actually who were used to participate in what you call classroom education, we should try to develop content and deliver lecture with the help of synchronous delivery mode, so that we can find they do not receive significant benefit in case of asynchronous learning. Asynchronous learning can also lead to isolation, because you are doing it at your own pace, and there is no interaction which is happening. If you see the next slide, you will come to know, ma'am, the next slide, please. If you see the next slide, you will come to know exactly what is the difference, and then you will say that which is better. Ideally, if you just quickly run through the slides, run through the points at your own, this one, while I'm telling you in background, that ideally, if you see effective e-learning, actually, the courses should include both asynchronous, it should be a blend of asynchronous and synchronous. This allows the students and the teachers to benefit from the different delivery formats, because we are following different, regardless of their schedules or preferred. That means they can either use emails, they can either use blogs, they can use recorded meetings, they can also attend live sessions, whatever they have used, whatever they are comfortable with. This approach, which one? A blend of asynchronous and synchronous approach, provides the students to access to immediate help if needed, while still giving them the ability to learn at their own pace. This is what, if you see, involves teachers with the fellow learners, students at their own, what we have been discussing, this has been given in the form of differences. Ma'am, the next slide, please. Now, what are the important elements? What are the important elements of online learning course that we need to consider? Consistent instructor presence. The value of feedback is very, very important. What sort of a learning management system we are using? Content that is up to par. It should be. It should not be underdeveloped or underdesigned or over-designed. It should match to the design expectancy of the attitude of our learners. It should be tested, well tested, before we actually launch them. And every learning outcome should have online tests and quizzes. This online test and quiz actually keeps the learner, keeps the learner active and involved, because they know these tests and quizzes will add up to the marks at the end, which will be taken at the end for evaluation purpose at the end of the course. Now, when we are talking about consistent instructor presence, the value of the feedback, what is this? So that we develop a valuable relationship with the learner over here. That is the meaning of the first point. That is the takeaway point of the first point. When we are talking about streamlined and well-designed LMS, what we are talking, that means any LMS system that we adopt, that our institution adopt, it will ensure that those tools are well accepted and they are hassle-free, and then its users, and it can be well used. They do not have too much of technical hitches. When we are talking about content that is up to par, that means the content should not be under-designed and it should not be too verbose. It should be easily understandable, so that the learner is able to understand the learning objective, and then only we can meet the learning outcome of the course. Because if he again goes for further study, this particular course becomes the prerequisite of the successive course. When we are talking about online tests and quizzes, it is only to retain the attention. They keep them involved, and we give them necessary information and make it more and more interesting, make them 100% participate in our online content delivery. Ma'am, the last slide, please. Yes. File formats these are the different formats we have been using. Each one of us know what to use. Text, in the form of text, we either use PDF or we use the doc file. Okay, we may use infographics, and infographics, if they are dynamic, the retention becomes much more easier for us. For the learners also, they retain in their mind too much to a greater extent. They don't tend to forget it also. Then audio, we should make them audio. This one, keep adding audio as and when required. We should add video as and when. So that's the only reason we always say management education can be best taught at times with the help of video or with the help of few movies also, clippets of the movies also. Spreadsheet in today's era has occupied a very important place, because today the world is ruled by analytics, and there should be interactives. There should be interactives. We do it with the help of Java and HTML packages, or what you call applications. So these are the different file formats that we generally use in order to form our e-content. So with this we come to the end of online design, development and delivery of e-content. I hope I have satisfied. I have tried my best to answer the queries.
Shall we take questions, ma'am?
Yeah, no problem at all. If the participants are, and I'll try my best. I'm not an expert. I'm also learning, as all of us, because it has come to a surprise for all of us. COVID has actually put up in this situation. COVID has put all of us in test.
You can type your question. How to clarify the consistent data?
How to clarify the consistency of the data in terms of in e-content? In terms of e-content, you can unmute and also ask me questions, ma'am, rather than, because sometimes we don't actually.
Ma'am, next question is very clear, ma'am.
Consistent data means what? We should always see that we are not moving away from the learning objectives. See, all of us, you are a NAAC accredited, you are an ISQ gauge, platinum graded organization. Okay. See, you have all done that program outcome. Program outcome is there, then course outcome is there, then learning objectives, and then learning outcome. So we have to see that we are somehow not drifting away from the program objective and program outcome, and we have to see that, and that's precisely the reason that we are bringing in different stakeholders, whether it is alumni or whether it is the industry experts, whether it is the subject matter experts from different elite institutions, or or our own students also, because we do, at the end of the day, we should not forget who are our learning consumers, and are we trying to achieve or attain their objectives or not. I hope I'm able to. How from inconsistent data during T, it went away. Let me open the chat.
Ma'am, I'll read out for you. How to clarify the consistent data from inconsistent data during teaching learning process by online mode.
See, madam, the moment, Mohammed Bhai, yeah, Mohammed Bhai, it will happen, the moment you will see that they are not submitting their assignments, they're not participating in quizzes, okay, you will come to know that there is some sort of disconnect which is happening between you and your learners. So you have to come back to your this one. Again, what is he asking? How to identify?
That was Mohammed Bas. This is Mohammed Taha. How to
Sorry.
identify and categorize different type of e-learners based on multimedia principle.
Types of e-learners based on multimedia principles. How to identify and categorize different types of e-learners based on multimedia. Okay, sir, at the end of the, before the beginning of the class, you can definitely, actually, ma'am, I didn't share one format. I had a format. I'll just pass it on to you. You can share it with, that's a PDF document. That's a wonderful one, which we distribute among all the learners, which mode of multimedia they wanted in their program or they're most comfortable with. So then what happens if there are 50 students or 60 students in a class, if they have all said that we want a particular multimedia, we want visual, we want audio, we want a mix of both, we want more of this one, Adobe, this one. So we come to know, and then we can design. I'll share that PDF. I did not,
Sure,
I wanted to put it in a hyperlink. I didn't do that. I'm very sorry for that. There is a particular, almost 30 questions to be answered by the student, and a similar 30 questions to be answered by the faculty for a particular module. What type of what you call multimedia, or what type of mode, or what you call tool that you would like to use in order to design your content. Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, Vigesh.
Yeah, madam, in the first starting form, I'm Adityan. I teach German language. My doubt is like form of e-content. In the first form,
yes,
in that one, I saw the simulation and immersive content.
Yeah.
So like how to simulate, like, for I'm a language teacher, like how I can use it actually.
Because I
Simulation.
don't understand if you speak German with me, as simple as that. But you have to give them, you have to create them as a, so you can do it in this way. Simulation is basically what? You are trying to create an artificial situation for the students. Am I right?
Like role play?
Role play is actually, role play is different. Role play is you are telling a particular student to play a role of a manager. This is you're creating a situation. Situation is different from the role play. Role play means it hits to, or it points to a particular individual, and situation is the bigger scope of it. So you can say, if this is a situation, you have got a seat in a German university and you land up over there, you have learned German, and how do you actually overcome that language, overcome that situation when you do not know that language in a fluent way? You can create that sort of a simulation activity.
Yes.
So what will you speak? How will you, with limited knowledge of German, what will you speak? How will you manage to overcome that challenge? You can create this sort of situations.
Yes.
We did this in our institution also.
And another one, immersive content. You have used augmented reality and virtual reality. Is there any scope now? Sir,
it's all hidden trial method that is going on, sir. We are all learners. I am telling you, because our students till now are not able to accept the fact that they won't be sitting in the classroom. If you have seen, lot of obstacle, lot of hindrances is going on, is being put forth even to conduct online exam also. So
No, I would like to
the
use it
passage of
actually.
time only, the passage
No,
of time only, sir, we can be able to solve
No.
this, sir. Definitely.
Actually, my question is like, is there any software or any website link where I could use it actually? That's my question actually. Augmented
Sir,
reality.
in the recent past, say a month ago, actually we were seeing different, we were taking the demo presentations of different learning management software companies. Okay, so if you can also approach these companies, they do have, but again it depends upon the requirement of your institution. This tool will be used in which all purposes, because exclusively for your only for one domain may not be feasible. That is the reason I told you time, technology, organizational, and cost. These are the most important constraints in today's online era.
Can you give us any website link or that is related to augmented reality so that anything related to teaching? So that
There are different, I can just give you this one. Diversified is one company. They also use it. They also had given us a presentation on this, because we had opted for Diversified. Then there are different, I can see you, because we had used Diversified. I can give you that name.
Yeah, please.
Okay, Diversified is not a name of, it's a name of an institution. It's not a company, it's not the term that I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's not Diversified. You can even ask them also. Ma'am, you just remind me, I will even forward this one also.
Sure, then.
Because there are the pros and cons, cost-wise also, because we had done a 1 month activity on this. Cost effectiveness of different learning management softwares also. That also I can share with you. Yes.
Any other question?
Hello.
HOD.
Hello, madam.
Yes, sir, Ajay, sir.
Yeah. Am I audible?
No, actually, there is lot of disturbance.
Am I audible?
Ajay, sir, no, you are not clear. Can you type your question?
Yeah, is it now audible? Hello.
It's very low, sir. Sir, you can type your question, sir.
Okay. Sure.
Next session we will start at 2:15. No, ma'am. Any other questions?